right? Welcome old family and new family to Cipher Scholars, part education, part hip-hop, all culture. You're listening to the co-host with the most, Brandon White, aka Bushido Garvey, as I'm known in many MC circles.
It's your boy Rob Blow on the tech, behind the tech on the board.
Yes. For those who don't know, I repeat, Cipher Scholars is the radio and blogcast show that is part education, part hip-hop, all culture. We try to keep it local, global, and universal. So on today's syllabus, we have a couple of items. We have special education, and peace to everybody listening on Facebook Live. We have special education.
Yes.
Not special education, pardon me. The education budget. We just got done talking about SPED. Well, yeah, the education budget that the Trump administration is trying to push. The Leaving Neverland aftermath has been out for like a month, but we're going to talk about the aftermath and the untimely, tragic loss of our brother Nipsey Hussle will all be on the syllabus today. So let's get it cracking.
Yeah.
So, a couple weeks ago, President Trump and the Trump administration presented their education budget cuts to Congress, and they have proposed, count them, $7.1 billion worth of cuts to the education budget.
That's a lot of money, man.
Yes.
That's a lot of money. The $7.1 billion spreads over a lot of programs, right?
Yes.
You want to run down the programs that this budget is?
Yep. So this cut would include, and peace to TT Anji. hey Ms. Garlock, how you doing? The education cut will propose for $1.2 billion cut in before and after school program during the summer, right? So we come from the Freedom School cloth,
yep.
right? So like programs like that get threatened. Okay. $190 million for that gets allotted for literacy instruction in school libraries and school librarianship to get PD. $27 million for arts programs, $10 million for community school initiatives. And a lot of cuts to the federal work study program. You know how when we went to school, we were able to get work study, you know what I'm saying, do a little job, but also be able to study in the process. 55% of that is at threat of being cut. So deep cuts, but interestingly enough, guess what ain't getting cut? Something we talked about earlier. The opportunity program, what is it? The freedom joint. The freedom scholarship.
Yeah, this freedom scholarship. Freedom scholarship and opportunity program or something like that. Act. I think it's an act. It's an act.
Yeah. So they're what they're trying to do with that freedom scholarship. It's like how much was it again? A year? Like
$5 billion over 10 years, or $10 billion over 10 years, or something like that. Where they're gonna take that money and give it to the states or schools that want to partake in taking that money and doing whatever they want to do with it.
Like the school choice thing, where they allot that money for states to give to parents who choose, according to them, to use that money to allocate for their own children's education outside of the traditional public schooling, right? So, and we talked about that last episode with it being a thing about the school choice initiative, which masquerades as something that's supposed to be empowering, but really is just lining the pockets of those who are in the privatized educational industry. And so that's not threatened. That's introduced. So it's introduced. So it's interesting, part of me, that all that money is getting cut. $7.1 billion is at threat of getting cut, but you're leaving room for this to happen, right? And it's interesting. So another thing that was getting a threat of being cut was within that budget was the Special Olympics. I don't know if you hear about that.
Yep. $18 million is supposedly going to get cut from the Special Olympics.
That was the original part of the budget, but they got out of her head. They got at Betsy DeVos's head. The Education Secretary Betsy DeVos had to deal with a lot of kickback. Peace, Dr. Nelms. We'll be talking about Nipsey a little later in the episode. But what's it called? The special education, not special education, Special Olympics advocates really got at her, right? And almost immediately after that backlash, she kind of, backpedaled on that being a possible cut. What she hasn't done as readily is go back on some cuts out of the policy that Obama put in, which provided a framework to decrease disproportionate suspension rates amongst black and brown students. Right? They try to take that part out of the education framework, right?
Yeah.
And she has yet to actually respond to why they're taking that piece out.
All right, so we've been talking about all these cuts. So why is it that people are against the cuts? First of all, because like I see things, literacy instruction programs are getting cut now. You know, literacy is a big thing in the education system here in America, and kids are suffering at the lack of literacy instructions, right? The lack of not reading a book, you know what I mean? The lack of missing sight words at certain times in the throughout their school career.
Phonics instruction in general, yeah.
Things like that, you know what I mean? So,
I mean, I think...
why are some people against it, though?
Against the cuts?
Yeah, against the cuts.
I think they're against the cuts because, you know, I think just in our own professional walk, I can think of many things that we got to do through these programs. You know what I'm saying? Like whether it's like restorative practices, because I believe if I got my stats right, the Trump administration is trying to cut $2 billion out of Title II, which is about professional development, and restorative practices falls into that, which you know we talk about with Ruth Turner, right? So, and then Freedom School technically is a summer literacy program, right? So, you know, you have that $190 million to boost literacy instruction that potentially threatens Freedom School, right? That $1.2 billion for programs for before and after school and during the summer that potentially affects Freedom School, right? So all these extra endeavors to kind of close this what has been falsely called the achievement gap.
Is this all money that's
getting threatened? Is
this all money that's being supplied from the federal government to? Like, this is all federal money, basically.
This is all federal money. Federal money. Yep. So, you know, the more that I'm look at it, because, and they're trying to cut trio programs. I appreciate you, Sister Larkin. And I think what happens is, and just in looking at all these cuts, you get to peep game a little bit more. The average educator, I would argue, like, doesn't get the opportunity to really look at how these budgets play out. But when you get the opportunity, like, you really see like patterns. I just feel like the federal government kind of like dangles money. Right.
Yep.
States clamor for it. Right. And as a result, you know, like there's an inner scramble amongst, like, you know, districts within a state to secure that money, and many execute well, some don't, some do. But it's interesting to hear Betsy DeVos kind of respond to these cuts when people will be like, well, why are you cutting this program that's supposed to help with literacy? She'll say her words, like her peak kind of I plead the fifth kind of answer was what was it? She'd always say, I'm trying to use her exact words, they have quote unquote limited impact, without necessarily stating the facts or the research that shows that there's limited impact on it. But yes, she's trying to promote school choice, which has not produced any kind of positive results necessarily.
She is in support of it, but I did notice in the article that she didn't even sign off on it yet, right?
No,
because
no.
Yet, so.
Well, so here's the thing: like, they got to propose it, and then Congress has to basically audit it and then go through it. You know what I'm saying? And then press her about it. And thank goodness, because there was one. What's that
and I hope they press her very well on that.
I think it's Clark. I think her last name is Clark. She called out Betsy DeVos on some research she used to inform the budget cuts that cited that black students were just more of a hassle in education. Like, she used research that said that. Right?
Man, wow.
And the senator called her out on it. It's like, why are you using this racist research to justify your bill? And DeVos's only response was, no student should ever be, whenever you watch her talk, it's just ridiculous. No student should ever be discriminated against. But the senator was like, but there is discrimination, and you're using discriminatory research to back up your decisions. But again, no student should ever be discriminated. Like, it's really ridiculous. And
man. All right, so you said one thing that's not getting affected by this budget cut for 2020 in the education department is just to make it real quick is the
Title One.
No,
Title One.
The act. Scholarship.
Oh yeah, the
Freedom
Scholarship. Yeah, and Title
and
One.
Opportunity
actually.
Act.
Both of them.
Okay. So
whoa, the Freedom Scholarship is
like,
still being pushed. Like it hasn't been approved yet. It's still been kind of pitched.
Okay. Yeah. So it looks like they're cutting. They're making the budgets cuts for all these programs dealing with students and families to help support of the scholarship. And Freedom Scholarship Act and the Title One situation. You know what I mean? So
and that's one thing. Title One. I think. What's up, family? I think Title One is like that pot that Trump knows to go nowhere near, because I think that's the pot that folks in education are most defensive about. You know what I'm saying? Because the federal government don't even add or throw enough money in that bag as it is. They're supposed to. I think there was like something in the 70s that said Title I is supposed to fund 40% of state-based initiatives in special education. They don't even do 20%. So, like since it's already something that's scarce, and it's like kind of like, the lack of better terms, like the sacred cow of like funding for like urban public schools in trouble, like he knows not to go nowhere near that, because then more people are going to be upset. That's
definitely.
Hey, Sister Larkin, I'm gonna call myself out real quick. What is a trio program? Because I tried to play it off like I knew. Now, that's not what Cipher Scholars is about. What's a trio program? I'm assuming it's kind of like a student support program, like social emotional student support program. But that's my assumption. Okay. So, Sister Larkin, if you're still listening or watching, please put me and Rob on about what that is. All right, we got to be honest here at Cipher Scholars. We'll go back to it as well, because we got to move on to the next syllabus piece, but we will come back to that. Facts.
So next on the syllabus is Michael Jackson, man.
Michael Jackson.
And Leaving Neverland documentary, the situation with the Neverland documentary, the director of this documentary, and the people that's also a part that actually told their stories of their incident, or their situation with Michael Jackson when at a young age. You know what I mean? So like a lot of people actually felt indifferently after this documentary aired. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's been out for like a couple weeks now.
I mean, I want to be. A lot of people felt so indifferently about it. It put Michael Jackson under a different light. You know what I mean? Obviously, a lot of people just gravitated towards this documentary, and you know what I mean, because of the emotions that was being given from those parties involved. You know what I mean? It's so hard to stomach at times to even watch the entire thing. You know what I mean?
Indeed. Sister Larkin, thank you for coming back. The question was, what are trio programs? I try to play it off like I knew, but I don't. So that's not what we do as Cipher Scholars. So if you can let me know what a trio program is. I gave my guess, but it will be dope if we got the knowledge and we were able to contribute it. But in terms of the Michael Jackson situation, you notice like there was a lot of reactions, just with like people in general, but like a lot of institutions. There was a childhood museum, right? That had like a fedora and it was one of his gloves. They took it out of display, right? The Simpsons cut out the Michael Jackson episode, right?
Countries around the world, or radio stations around the world discontinued his music, the playing of his music.
That's right. So there's been a lot of aftermath. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like that's warranted? Do you feel like that's or do you feel like that was like hasty? What are your thoughts?
All right, so this is a common PR move that companies pull off every time there's a
it was Louis Vuitton too. Louis Vuitton took out like a Michael Jackson line that they had. But
no, I ain't know that. But this is a common practice that businesses use or utilize when there's a incident in the news of some sort where a public figure gets crucified, you know what I mean, or gets caught up in some form of fashion in a court case, or maybe some form of a documentary where they want to protect their image, they want to protect the money, they want to protect what their product, you know what I mean? So like, okay, so you asked me if it was warranted. Now when it comes to those practices, maybe to a degree it might be warranted, but at the same time I felt like people jumped out the window too early because they didn't like wait to see the actual facts. Like hearing the story is one thing, but seeing factual evidence is another thing as well. You know what I mean? Like, even though the emotions could definitely be real, you know what I mean? I'm not against that at all. But you know what I mean? Numbers and emotions are two different things, and it could tell an entire story if you don't have the entire story in front of you.
No, indeed. I looked for, with Michael Jackson, I looked for evidence, like proof, admission. And there was like a third thing I was thinking about, but proof and admission.
Okay.
Right? Like, so there have been a lot of major, like, black entertainers that have gotten caught up on some sexual violation charges of sorts. We have R. Kelly, we have Bill Cosby, we have Michael Jackson. What differentiates with me, Michael Jackson, from the rest of those two is there's proof and there's admission.
Okay.
Cosby already admitted to one or two cases himself, his own admission, along with the conviction happening, right? R. Kelly, he didn't admit it, but there was proof in 2000, 2001 when those tapes were circulating, right? And proof of forged documents, him marrying Aaliyah and stuff like that, right? So with Michael Jackson, there's none of that. There's no admission, and the feds have already got at this man twice in his life, and if the feds are trying to convict you, they have a high success rate. So at the same time, sexual abuse is real, and because I'd also, you know, like,
been held up in this city for a while.
You know how bad I'd feel if those two men accusing him actually were abused. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I just try to reserve judgment, but I know that if you're in an industry where people, I mean, if you're in an industry and you serve people who are tossing up about, you know, what actually went down and how they feel, like, the safest bet might be to pull, you know, your support from them. But at the same time, it's like, you don't know, and you know, unless there's some sort of documentation that hasn't been found yet, you know, like, it's gonna be hard to know, and not to immediately discredit the two men who were accusing him, but you know, it's a tightrope. It's definitely a tightrope, and it's really it's impacting the family too, because the family is like, you know, like, our brother didn't do this. I can't believe we're going through this again. 10 years after he died, it's basically almost 10 years, right?
Man.
His daughter, you know, really going through it. Paris Jackson really going through it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, it doesn't help.
All right, so he had dozens of kids come through Neverland, right? Yeah. There's been, like you said before, there's been several raids on Neverland, right? Right. Computers apprehended. Items apprehended, you know what I mean? Like, you know, they combed through the entire, you know what I mean, fields of Neverland, you know what I mean? Yeah. And there was nothing found, right? Right. Nothing found at all. You also had kids vouching for him, like who, Macaulay Culkin, maybe?
I'm not sure if he,
I don't know if he was a part of it.
Stepped up, but I feel like, what's his name, Corey Feldman, who kind of stepped up, but then kind of fell back a little bit. Like,
the documentary, because of, you know, the emotions given when the stories was told, and you know what I mean.
I tried to watch that documentary
the believability of it, you know what I mean. Like once again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful whatsoever. You know what I mean. I respect the stories. I mean, and I understand the seriousness of it. You know what I mean. The severity of it all. But in recent news, there was an article that came out where the director of Neverland talked about I believe Safe Chuck's story, or one of the
That's right. You was putting me on to that the other day.
The stories of that was given by one of his don't know to say the word, but one of the people he had filmed.
Yeah.
I think his name was Safe Chuck, I believe.
Yeah, that's his last name.
Yep, Mr. Safe Chuck. He said that Mr. Safe Chuck said that he was molested from or like, you know what I mean, from the years of what was it, 1980.
I forgot. Like the years didn't line up.
Yeah, the years didn't line up. So let's say around like late 1980s up to like early 1990s. You know what I mean? Like he said from whenever
he gave a
to
span of
1993.
time
He said
that was
1993 it
not accurate.
ended, right? So, but there's a place in Neverland that wasn't built until 1994. Neverland, I think the place that he said that he was at when the situation occurred, it was not built until 1994. He said this happened in 1993.
So the chronology didn't match up.
So it did not match up. The director admitted to this. The Neverland director admitted to this. He said that he also found out the information not to be true. The dates not to be true. So when you do add up the dates and his age, when he said this occurred, he had to be like 17,
right,
or like maybe 18. I'm not sure around in age wise. You know what I mean? So like
so on top of everything else that makes things even more sticky.
Yeah.
Right?
So while people are already making judgment, making the discernment and all that, you know what I mean? You're not even getting the full story. You're not even seeing all aspects of the stories. The years Neverland was in existence. Who was with him? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like all of these things. You know what I mean? So just to hear that throws a monkey wrench in half the documentary alone. You know what I mean? Like, so
it raises a lot of questions. For sure.
You know what I mean?
For sure. Sister Larkin, thank you so much. TRIO programs, I'm gonna read it as stated. TRIO programs are federal outreach and student services programs designed to identify and provide. Sorry, I had trouble reading for a second. Provide services for individuals from disadvantaged backgrounds, funded by the Department of Education programs like Gear Up, Upward Bound, stuff like that. Yep. So that's what's up. Thank you, Sister Larkin, for contributing to the cipher. Appreciate it. So actually, speaking of the cipher and its syllabus, we got to move on to the death of another black man who was practicing industrial autonomy with music, Nipsey Hussle. Yes.
So this last Sunday?
This was this weekend, right?
Yeah,
April
this past
1st?
weekend.
Yep. What a loss, homie. And again, I told you several times, like that was the last thing I was listening to. Like the last album I was bumping was Victory Lap. And then just to see that, like I had to read it twice to make sure I understood what was going on. It's painful.
Yeah, it's a serious loss to the community or Crenshaw district, man.
Yeah. And I knew he was making moves. I knew he was diversifying his economics. I knew he was into real estate. I knew he was into cryptocurrencies early, like really early, before it became like this whole fear of missing out thing. But I didn't know that he ran this space called Vector 90.
Okay.
Vector 90 is like this like shared workspace, but also like this almost like a pipeline or bridge for young folk to get connected with STEM work, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I did hear about that too. I did hear about that. He was going, he was trying to help kids improve themselves
Silicon Valley and stuff.
But linkage to Silicon Valley. With technology, arts, science, math. Things of that nature. Right?
Yep, exactly. So that piece to Caleb for listening. Appreciate you. But just the fact that he knew how to stack his bread while still giving back. Like he was a rare breed because one, again, he was conscious but also street in a way that anybody can connect with him. But he also found a way to really expand his economic empire while evenly giving back. Some people are like 90% economic expansion, 10% giving back. Some people are 90% giving back and then 10% economic expansion or no economic expansion, right? He found a great balance of all of it, and just his growth and transition, it was just crazy. I found out actually recently, like he was just always original, I guess, because he got kicked out of school, high school, but still wanted to learn. So he went to a community college out there
on his own.
On his own, took classes in religion, philosophy, etc., etc. Yep. He would like be citing Plato. So when it came time to like his high school, going back to high school, his teachers would be like, "Yo, why are you citing Plato?" He'd be like, "Yo, I just dig it."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So he's always been ahead of the game. You know what I'm saying? As much as the streets try to get at it. Hey, peace, Mr. Carey. And that's actually a piece of what we're going to talk about right
Carey,
now.
what's up?
Because he asked a good question. He said it was a coincidental that he was working with Dr. Sebi. That's his question, which I think just kind of gets at the whole Dr. Sebi piece, right?
Yep.
So naturally in the hip hop community, particularly like in the conscious, the politically woke, or even just like the African American community, we understand conspiracy is a real threat that induces trauma in our communities.
Yes.
It's proven over and over again, from COINTELPRO to Tuskegee experiment to redlining to
Willie Lynch letter. Willie Lynch letter. You know what I mean? That's not an old timer thing. It's not in the 1800s. That's 1960s, man.
And even with the author being questioned, those practices were still put into place. So. And the other parts of the medical institution kind of just quietly
definitely
murdering us, you know what I'm saying? Like with Medical Apartheid, best book on planet Earth. But so with that being said, medical apartheid, Dr. Sebi was somebody who was a holistic healer, claimed to cure a lot of diseases like AIDS, right? Had people come in to testify in court to talk about how he did that, right? Also rode with Michael Jackson.
Right? Michael Jackson.
Right? Yep. And Nipsey Hussle appreciated his work and was willing to do a documentary.
Yes.
So all those things, the things that we had noted about him being a powerful connection to the streets that was lifting the streets up, with him doing that documentary, it's almost natural to kind of have that be a question in your mind, right? But at the same time, you also don't want to, because sometimes we do that out of trauma, right? We're just like trying to figure out healing, like, and find rationale, like, oh, it has to be a conspiracy, when it might not have been. The tragedy might have been like somebody's pride got in the way and on some reckless nonsense and killed him in front of his store. It might have been that. It could have been, so, but it's hard to wrestle with that. And I myself still wrestle with that, Carrie and other folk who think about it.
And once again, people in this same situation, just like the Michael Jackson situation, people are quick to jump out of the window. You have to be patient to see all information become disclosed. You know what I mean? You can't just sit there and as soon as something comes about and breaking news and you just sit there and ridicule somebody in the public side or the off rip. You know what I mean? You got to sit back and see all things unfold. You know what I mean?
Indeed, that's real.
What time?
We got a couple, like 1 or 2 minutes left. We're in good space.
So you know what I mean? Like you said, Nipsey practiced economics at his finest. You know what I mean? He bought the entire little plaza section in the Crenshaw district. You know what I mean? Not only just the Marathon clothing store.
Exactly.
But that little
he bought the block.
He bought the block. He bought the block. Just like Rick
Ross
said. Like, didn't they do a song?
Yeah. Well, he cited Rick Ross. He said, "I like." Dr. Sebi because he talk about wealth. I mess with Rick Ross because he talk about health. I didn't say it as fly as Nip can because only Nip can say it that fly. But So he was about it, and I would make the argument, even with all like the gang banging elements that are kind of like present and in realities that are kind of talked about in Victory Lap, that is like the most pro-black album that's been produced in a while. Not on some dashikis and shea butter and all of that, but like practical, like this is how we uplift our folk from the streets that are dealing with gang tribalism and banging on each other with this kind of thinking and this kind of cooperative economics with this kind of talk. So, you know what I'm saying? Actually, what I like to do real quick is, if we can, just give like just a moment of silence for the brother Nip, just real fast. Thank you, Brother Nip, for your art, your culture, your mind, your growth. We hope and pray that your family stays safe and stays vigilant about, finding peace and justice in the situation. And we just wish y'all the best.
Definitely, man.
Thanks, So, man, we blew through that syllabus already.
Cool. That was cool, man. That was a crazy.
Yes. So thank y'all, everybody, for listening to Cipher Scholars, part education, part hip hop, all culture. You can catch us every Tuesday, 1:30 to 2 p.m. on 104.3 Wayo FM. You can also catch us on Mixcloud, Facebook, online, and on BushidoGarvey.com. Almost couldn't say my own website. BushidoGarvey.com. Appreciate y'all. Peace and progress.